Alrighty, tidy folkerino doodle doodles. This will be the last installment for this series on the forklift. There's a few other things we still have to do, but this is the last bit of raw footage that I have from doing the big job on the forklift, or all of the little jobs that culminated into a big job. This video is just a bunch of short clips that didn't really fit in with any of the rest of what we were doing, including unboxing the new parts that we got, which is always fun and interesting. I always like I don't know, there's something satisfying about opening boxes. I don't know what it is. Even if you know what's inside. That's why there's an entire industry of people on Twitch and YouTube both that just literally that's all they do is unboxing videos. It's like, apparently that's something that's satisfying to people. So the biggest thing that I looked forward to in this box was the ignition wires, the parking brake cable, which we saw a second ago, and the gasket set, which was that first big thing. This I found in the engine bay, not connected to anything. There's two broken vacuum ports on it, and the one vacuum hose that was still connected was just dangling. I suspect it's part of the ignition retard system that prevents the thing from shutting off when you put it to full hydraulic lock or full steering lock. It currently shuts off when you put it to full hydraulic lock or full steering lock. So we need to fix that. One of the jobs was replacing the battery terminals. The ones that were on there were very, very old and abused and not in very good shape at all and very corroded, etc., etc. So we cut those off and stuck some new terminals on there. I didn't really do it the way I would have preferred to do it. I ended up just sticking there's 3 positive wires, one for the starter, and these 2 smaller wires that I honestly have no idea what the heck they go to, but they were connected to positive, so we connected them back to positive when I put it back together. A better me would have done a better job and figured out what they were for first, but here we are. I just stuck them all in the same lug and crimped it down with some wire cutters. Don't do that. Don't be like me. Don't do what I do. Use the right tool for the job. He says, not using the right tool for the job. Anyway, not the point. It's funny because this clip, I already have the wires on, but coming up very shortly, we're going to see the clip of me putting the wires on. First, we're going to put the fan belt on, which literally, it took me 15 minutes. Loosen the alternator, pull the belt off, put the belt on, tighten the alternator, done. Here's the bit putting the ignition wires on that we saw were already on in the clip doing the battery a minute ago. It's fine, don't worry about it. This is the bit where I discovered the parking brake cable was seized. It was just the whole system was loose and not adjusted correctly, so I figured, you know what, we'll pull it apart, clean any of the gunk out of here, bend anything back that needs to be bent back, etc., etc. Once I got it apart, I discovered that the right side, or passenger coming from the automotive world, the right side parking brake cable was just completely seized. I also discovered there's an adjustment inside the handle, and that cap is a pain in the butt to take off. So add that to the list of adjustments that there are in the brake system on this dang forklift. But the parking brake cables are pretty easy. They're just routed down through the engine bay there to their respective wheels, and easy peasy. And you can see me pulling on the brake cable there, and nothing's happening. And then, yeah. I stuck it on the table, and I stuck channel locks on it, and I tried to free it up, and I could not get it to move. Then we have greasing all of the grease zerks that I could find that appeared to have not been greased in at least 20 years. They were so crusty, and it's... Whenever you grease things, people, clean the freaking grease off the zerks. We have a grease zerk there that looks like somebody sanded the end off of it. I had to replace it. Luckily, we already had a box of grease zerks that we got for the brake pedal assembly. So huzzah for that, I guess. But greased all the grease zerks, made sure everything was good. I didn't actually get footage of me greasing the rails, but we did grease the rails for the lift mechanism. Well, we cleaned the rails and then re-greased them, and I told him we've got to do this at least every 6 months or so. I know for a fact he's not going to do it, but I told him I did my due diligence. I did try to remove the chains. The chains were kind of rusty, and they had not been lubed in, again, at least 20 years. And so I was going to take the chains off. I was going to soak them in ATF, clean them up real nice, get them all, nice and pretty and lubed up and working good. And then I realized that they had been on there so long and not maintained in so long that the nuts that hold the chains to the arm, the lift arm, the top nut was rounded such that it was squished into the thread. So it's now a permanent nut. It's effectively welded itself to the chain. So we had to leave them in place and kind of scrub them by hand with ATF and a brush. That was fun. This whole process probably took me a good 2 or 3 hours. I probably should have charged him more for that, but I told him I was going to charge him something, and by golly, I was going to keep to my word. I also somehow didn't capture lubing the chains after all of this. I got a rag and some 75/90, 80/90 gear oil and ran that up and down the chains to lube them up. You want something heavy-ish but thin enough that it can get in between the links. So gear oil kind of fit the bill. And all in all, this job I think took, so the time span total was something about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. 6 days of that was the parking brake cable, because we ordered it in Tucson and the guy he leaves early and we'd never get up to Tucson early enough because we had other stuff to do in the mornings, etc., etc. So it was 3 days that we went up there trying to get this brake cable. By then we could have just ordered it online because the place that I ordered the gaskets and everything else from did have parking brake cables. So whatever. Said and done, we got the cables, got it all installed. The last bit here is just taking everything down off the jacks and the jack stands and what have you, so that we can put it on the ground, get her started up, get everything tested, make sure everything works as intended, and get it back into service. It was down a couple of months before I got here, and then 3 weeks, 4 weeks once I started working on it, just because of that whole waiting on parts and trying to figure out the right parts for the brakes and all of the stuff that ended up taking, oh, one more day. Oh, it's one more day. We need parts. It's one more day. Every single time, there's just something else trying to find parts for this darn thing. But get the ignition cylinder lubed up, get the engine started up, make sure everything works as intended, and then drive it out of the shop. Job's a good one. It's funny because we kind of parked it in a tight spot, so getting it out of the shop was kind of fun. And if you like the video, as always, don't forget to like it, subscribe it, crank it, and rip it. And we'll see you in the next one.